Another fantastic Monday, Mr. Farrell.
Fantastic. Fall is here. Football season's 4 weeks old, college football, so we're almost at the midpoint. And the promo is going very well. It's exciting to see how excited these kids are, about the potential opportunity. And it's funny to watch too. It's myfootballcamps.com/D1. If you're looking for promotion, if you're young or if you're underappreciated or underexposed in the recruiting process. It is interesting, to see the roller coaster ride that these kids go through. Sometimes they get a spike of interest, then interest wanes, then they get another little spike, then interest wanes, then they get panicky. The whole process itself is, you will get these spikes and then wanes if you're not out there continually, and then life gets in the way. Our D lineman from our offensive lineman from Texas had to move to Oregon, because he's got a family illness, and it can uproot your recruiting entirely. So I think it's good to have people in your corner to sort of navigate through this stuff. And we're not giving advice, but if you go from a guy that's playing in the state of Texas to Oregon in the middle, of your process, your senior year, it changes the geographical recruiting basis of everything. And it's nothing you can control. You just have to, sort of continue to have more promotion so that people know that you're still out there. Because sometimes they can look back and say, hey, where's this Texas kid? He's gone. But with our promotions, you're going to know where he is and what he's doing and get his highlights from his first few games. So it's tough out there, man. It's tough. The recruiting process is not easy at all.
I was just on the phone with a couple of people last week about it and explained to them how it was a parent who's on board with us now, one of the quarterback from North Carolina, and how difficult the process is. Obviously, quarterback's always difficult, right? Because there's not that many. So you got to be really good and you got to be able to do the job. But what's difficult is we were talking a lot about the portal, right? And how it's affected the high school athletes. So, I say the fortunate and unfortunate part of it is having someone in your corner is going to be important who holds some weight. And that's also the unfortunate as well, because if you don't have someone in your corner, you could be left out in the cold. So not everything in life is fair, but there is a process to be able to help you. And we have that. And you can go to myfootballcamps.com/D1. And I can tell you this, that there is a lot. Obviously, there's still plenty of opportunity in college football. It's just you got to make sure that you're able to figure out and navigate the right way to go about it and have the right people in your corner. And the great thing is that, in just a short time period that we've been doing these videos, we've really been able to hone in well, I think, on what the players do well, be very transparent on it, and talk about their strengths in a way that not just, I think, their parents and themselves appreciate, but also coaches who are getting these notifications, because we are concrete at how we talk about things, and there's little to no fluff on anything,
Yeah, and we never sugarcoat how difficult it is. But everything's difficult. You watch Ted Lasso?
No, but I do know who he is.
Such a great show. And super happy-go-lucky, college football coach gets hired to be a soccer coach. And, you wonder, like, this guy's life, he's just always happy and upbeat and all that stuff. And then you find out that he had tremendous trauma as a child, and he starts to get panic attacks and stuff like this. And one of the things he said is one of the happiest-go-luckiest characters you're ever going to see. Life is hard, and life is hard. And you need help sometimes. And this isn't life or death, whether you play football at the college level or don't, or what level you play at isn't life or death. But to do all the hard work you put in from the age of sometimes 4, sometimes 8, sometimes 10 to now, you want it to be rewarded in some way, or at least for people to notice the hard work you're putting in there. So, the downside of it to me is that I become invested in the success level. And I often think of some of our one-time promoting, because we offer the one-time and the 6-month and the 12-month. And the one-time, I always kind of want to circle back with them and say, it's okay to do 6 more months if you want to. It's probably the smart thing to do if you didn't get what you were hoping for, or, you didn't blow up, which is never going to happen, I don't think, on the one-time. I think it's going to expose you, and I think it's going to help you. Especially the younger kids, get you on the radar. But, I think of some of the kids that did the one time, and I wonder where their recruiting process is at and if it helped at all. So I circle back on those guys sometimes. And it's intriguing to see the emotional ups and downs that kids have when it comes to this process, because it's hard. So, we're not promising any sort of immediate success or anything like that. But the more people you have in your corner in this world, the better off you are. And that's something you're going to learn later in life too. So it's good to sort of lean on people. And I think we can be leaned on to help. So if you do want the promotion, or you're interested in the promotion, and, some people tag me in film, and I'm sure they tag you too.
Yeah.
And I think they're hoping for a retweet or us to evaluate the film and things like that. And that's unfortunately not the way it works. And having been, worked at a large recruiting company for 24 years, that's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen for us currently. It's not going to happen at those big companies. They're not going to discover your film, look at your film, take an interest in you. They're just not. Sometimes you have to actually sign up for something, and nothing's free in this world. But I think if you do sign up for the promotion, you're going to get our best effort and our full interest. And unfortunately, there's just not enough time in the day for us who are trying to, make a living and pay bills to pay attention to those that aren't part of the promotion. So when they do tag me in that, I always DM them and I say, are you interested in a promotion? And half the time they don't respond because they, whether it's too expensive or they don't want to. And then the other half the time they do. But I can tell you, it's going to help you. Tagging random people is not going to help you. I had one kid tell me that he emailed directly every college from FCS to Power 5. And I told him, I said, every one of those emails was deleted. Not one was read. It's life. Sucks. But you need help. Sometimes you need help.
I agree. I think there are multiple ways to go about it from a process standpoint. I think you need to exhaust all of those areas. And if you can, this happens to be an area that will put you a latch above everybody else. And notch above, I should say. And that's a big difference maker. And I think that the players that are on the 6-month promotion are seeing a huge difference. People ask, oh, what type of players are they? These are really, really good players. We have a lot of guys that have scholarships, but it's not just for those guys. But we do have some really, really good players, guys. Bunch of guys with scholarship offers. So, and guys that are gonna be getting scholarship offers. And this part is putting them to the forefront to give them that opportunity to stay in the eyes of the coaches. Because when a college coach comes out of a football game, he makes his Wednesday night calls for recruiting to the guys that are already recruiting. They get the recruiting coordinator to send over a bunch of guys that they think they should look at that may not yet be on their radar. Like, you need to be on that group of guys, because if you're not, then you're just, the recruiting coordinator or not even recruiting coordinator, but the recruiting GA who's kind of like, I don't know. I don't know whether he's good or not. And he just, and you may be really good, but the recruiting GA is just looking for one thing, like, only send me stuff that is out of this world, right, Mike? Like, don't send me anything that's not out of this world. Right?
He wants to make his name. That's what he's doing. So the guys fielding your emails, they're not going to spend a lot of time on it unless something wows them. And even then, they're going to be scared to take it to the next level because, the next level, their boss might laugh at it and say, what are you doing? So taking a risk on someone is extremely dangerous when you're a recruiting GA. And that's another reason why you won't get past them. And with us, like you said, I mean, we got kids. I think we have kids in our program, and I think we're over 100 now. A lot of them, based on my knowledge, and again, this is the guy who said Arch Manning, if he was Arch Smith, he'd be a 3-star. Based on the evaluation talent that's out there when it comes to, these big websites, that's what I meant, is that his film comes through. Arch Manning's film comes through to every college as Arch Smith, it's going to get deleted too. They're not going to look at it because they don't know who he is. You got to be known before you're known. And that's what we do. We make you known. And I think we have a lot of kids that just weren't known. And I think they're talented kids that if they got to us earlier, or even now, they're becoming known. But had they got to us earlier, there's a couple of players in this, and I won't name them by name, that are 2023 prospects that we've promoted that I think are Power 5 level prospects. But they just got started too late. And they're going to end up FCS, which is fine. And then they can, if they're good enough, they could transfer to Power 5 or Group of 5 through the portal. But they got to us too late. If you give us 6 months, if you give us 12 months, and you give us time, sophomore, junior year, or whatever, we can make you known. Because, like I said, if you're not known, you're not known. And that was my whole point about the Arch Manning thing. And people took it out of context, this famous, recruiting guy says Arch Manning's a 3-star talent. He's not. He's not a 5-star. He's not a 5-star plus. He's not a perfect recruit, as everybody says, or whatever. He's got skills, but the last name certainly helps. But I'm telling you, and it's always tempting to me to sort of send in blind film to somebody. And by that, I mean, it's like take, Jadeveon Clowney's film and put some no-name kid on it and send it around to colleges and see if anybody notices. Because it's the best film you're ever going to see for a defensive player ever at high school. I guarantee you it would probably be like a 50% rate of people that would even look at it and say, because the first play on it, he runs a kid down from like 70 yards as a defensive end. So if anybody's opening it and they look at the first play, they're intrigued immediately. And I bet you half of them wouldn't even open it. And that's where we're at in recruiting. So you better get some help. Wouldn't that be funny, though, if I just put up like Jadeveon Clowney's old film and say, my name is, Bob Smith. I'm a defensive end from Colorado. I'm not on any radar yet, but I think I'm really good. And my film is Clowney's film.
What if that was the film and you were from Maine?
It would be ignored. Colorado, even, I think it's ignored. And again, Clowney's film is so famous.
It is famous. So
that maybe people would notice, but it's just an example of taking somebody's great
film. What if
film.
you did Noel Devine? Okay. He said he's far enough removed, right? He's now like,
too famous, man. Too famous. That highlight film of his freshman season where he does 4-spin moves and makes people, it's so ingrained. There's certain highlight films out there like Reggie Bush. Who's the dude that went to West Virginia from Maryland? He was a first rounder too, and I can't remember his name. There's so many amazing highlight films out there that are so good. But the point is, you could have film like that, and if you're not known, you're not known. And when do you get known? You get known, honestly, these days in 8th grade and 9th grade. That's when you first get on the radar. That's the way it is. And how do you get on the radar? It's really like a chicken egg type of thing. Are you on the radar because other schools have you on the radar, and maybe like a Florida will discover you because they heard Alabama's recruiting you? Or is it a situation where, Florida sees you, discovers you as a young kid, or sees you in camp and that puts you on the radar. And then other schools sort of gravitate that way. You just don't know. But I do know this: you have to be discovered. Without that. You remember Christian Wilkins played locally here at Suffield Academy. His coach sent me his film as a freshman. He had no offers whatsoever. And I didn't look at a lot of film that wasn't, that I didn't know because I didn't have time. But this kid happened to be from Suffield Academy, and he's a Connecticut kid. So it piqued my interest. So I clicked on the film. I watched the first 2 plays, and I said, holy crap. Like, this kid's amazing. And then I invited him to our New Jersey camp as a freshman, and he was great there. Ended up with 50 offers, 5-star kid, went to Clemson, first rounder, just won yesterday. He had a great game against the Bills. They're 3-0 in the Dolphins. And that's how he got discovered. Now, was it because of me? No, he doesn't owe me anything. But I will tell you this, the only reason I looked at that particular film was because he was from Suffield Academy. And had it been from Colorado or Maine or something, I probably wouldn't have. And his process might have been a little bit slower. Sharif Floyd's a good example too. So it's just, you need people to make somebody notice. And that's,
I remember Sharif Floyd went from nobody it was Melvin's camp back in the day, the elite, whatever. You guys did it with them. With Chris Melvin. You remember Chris Melvin?
I remember Chris Melvin. Me and Chris Melvin butted heads a few times.
I remember this kid being there because I had a lineman that was coaching that was there. And I had just started getting into campuses at the time. And maybe I was a couple years in. And this kid was dominating. He was going against a kid who went to Rutgers, Anthony Davis. And
I remember him, 5-star kid.
Yep. And that Sharif did great against him. They had like some battles, right? And then next thing you know, I'm sure you were writing about him. And next thing you know, Sharif Floyd went from a guy who was good, probably eventually get some Division I offers, to a guy that just exploded. Literally, I think he played. Didn't he play in the Army All-American game? I think.
Yeah. So what happened was, after that camp, I invited him to the Army Combine.
Okay.
For the underclassmen, the Thursday before the game itself, or the Friday before the game itself. So right. He was one of the 500 invitees, and he had to pay the money.
Right.
And he was from Philly, and I think if I remember correctly, there was some sort of brownie bake sale to come up with the money, and he got the money to fly to San Antonio and to participate in the combine, and he was great. I mean, the kid was like 6'4", 305 pounds, chiseled, so freaking talented, but nobody really knew about him. And he went to the combine, and I think he had a UConn offer at the time. And then after the combine, he blew up. We wrote about him. He got ended up with 40 offers, 50 offers, ended up going to Florida for Meyer, first rounder, got injured. He's still in the game. Right. He's actually a coach. I think at Florida, I think he's a GA at Florida. And it's funny too, because one of his coaches ended up being a personnel guy at Baylor and Temple, and is still in the industry as well. And it's like, you discover more than just players. You discover, and it wasn't his head coach; it was his position coach, and he got to network through Sharif and got people to understand that he was a good coach too. So, but there's stories like that all the time. But nowadays, I honestly think in this industry, the talent level of evaluation as far as discovering kids is really, really down. It used to be in the day, it was journalists who were taught how to scout. I was a journalist who was taught how to scout. And I sat with many, many old time, assistant coaches and broke down film and learned, what zone blocking scheme was, or what to look for in a cornerback and all that stuff. And just learn sort of that process through coaches. Now they're journalists and they're just cranking out articles, and they don't really know what a good football player looks like. The rankings are very, very watered down with who is popular. And I don't mean to pick on Arch Manning, but again, he's the number 1 player in the country for everybody. ESPN's got him number 2. I've got him number 8 at quarterback, and that doesn't mean I'm right, but I look into it a little bit more so than the guys that are in this industry, I think. And some of them who have been around for a long time are good, but I just keep seeing more new names brought in, and they don't know what to do and evaluate. So again, you could send a Clowney film to somebody. If they looked at it, I think he would pop off the screen. You would hope. But I don't even know if they'd do anything about it, because why waste their time on a kid with no offers? And that's where these kids are stuck at. So that's why the promotion, I mean, we're a little long-winded on the promotion today, but to me, it's an emotional issue as well. There's such a hunger and want to from some of these kids to be discovered, and they're just never going to be discovered unless they get some help.
Agreed. myfootballcamps.com/D1. Get the promotion. It's right below. You can see it. How do I do that? Oh, there you go.
There it is.
You can see it, and we'll be glad to help you. And let's talk a little.
Yeah, and my webcam better be better.
It is better, by the way. It's much better today. It's much.
So
better.
I think it was my internet speed. So what happened is I have Frontier when I moved, and Frontier is not known for great internet, but I have the highest internet package. But I was doing a speed test on it, and my speed test was like 89 upload and like 7 download. It was horrible, and I didn't know this. So the speed of it, I just rebooted it and I got better upload downloads, but I'm going to buy a new camera as well, because this is an antiquated one. But I was looking at some of the clips you sent me, I couldn't even put out there. I looked so horrible. It was just so grainy and awful. And people were like, no, it's your lighting, because I have a window over here. No, this was just grainy crap. So this better work better. I will tell you also, I went to a concert last night for the first time in like 15 years. A rock concert. Have you ever heard of a band named Bring Me the Horizon?
No.
So good. They're a kind of a heavy rock, not a thrash metal, but just a really good band from England. And they were playing at the Big E up in Springfield, Massachusetts, of all places. And they just sold out the Barclays Center in Brooklyn. They're selling out places in Atlanta, LA, Chicago. And I'm like, what are they doing here? So I went to that last night, and I've learned a few things. First, I cannot stand in the same spot for 2 hours without my legs completely atrophying and seizing up. Have you ever tried to stand in the same position for 2 hours?
I have. I do all the time.
Why? You move around a little bit with camps and stuff and coaching.
You move around a little bit. You're right.
I'm talking same spot,
No,
not moving.
That's not it. That's
not that I was a robot. I mean, obviously I was, moving a little bit and doing that, but my legs just died.
Now, what are they? What kind of band is that?
So I don't like, they're heavier than like a Linkin Park. They're not as hair metally as a Queensryche. They're kind of in a class of their own, but it's heavy. I mean, it's heavy, but it's not growling heavy. You know how some bands, they used to be a growling. It used to be that, like, horrible. I didn't like that. And then they changed to like a more melodic version of themselves, and they're just unbelievable. And the thing that was bad about it, though, at the very end, they come out and they do their encore, and they're like 1 minute left from their last song. And then the lead singer, Ollie Sykes, has to cut the music. He's like, stop the music. A girl was crowd surfing, because the crowds there get nuts. They have mosh pits and circle pits and, all this stuff.
Yep.
So she was crowd surfing, and the crowd forgot to catch her at one point, and she went down and cracked her head. So they had to bring in the ambulance, and they had to stop the show, and it was kind of a crappy ending to what was an amazing show. But I will tell you this, I'm an old fart who hasn't seen a concert in a very long time, and it's out of my comfort zone to actually, go and do this. It was transformative experience. So I'm going to start going to new concerts. Yeah. And I don't want to see Motley Crue. I love Motley Crue. I grew up on Motley Crue, but I don't want to see Fat Vince Neil, who can't sing anymore, ruin the songs that I grew up on. I want to see like real legitimate bands. I mean, these guys are all in their 30s, and I don't want to see, I love Def Leppard. I still think they're good. I saw a concert from the Scorpions on TikTok the other night, 2 weeks ago, from Tampa. They were amazing. They sounded just like it. But poor Klaus is 74 years old, the lead singer of the Scorpions.
Is he really?
74. And so he's shuffling around, but his voice is amazing.
Still could sing. Well, he had a great voice, booming voice.
Every song sounded just like I had seen them in the 90s. Every song sounded the same, except he's shuffling around. And so some of them can hang in, like the Scorpions were absolutely great. And then some of them, you see like a Guns N' Roses, concert on video, or you see like Motley Crue, and you just want to be like, oh, you just ruined it, man. You ruined my memories. So this was great experience. We'll do it again. I'm a little bleary-eyed because I'm not a stay-up late guy, but I will tell you, I feel young. It was great.
Yeah, I remember. Now, my question for you about metal, and is it still as it was in the 80s and 90s? Is there still the level of like, I haven't really listened to a lot of that stuff in a long time. 80s, is it still prominent like it was?
Nothing is because of there's no more CDs. There's no more CD release. I mean, there are, but remember when you used to get like we're old enough to get albums, but when you used to have a CD come out and it was a big deal, and you go to the record store and you got the sleeve and the lyrics and you listen to it over and over again.
And the artwork.
Now, everything's digitally, released. It's hard for bands to get that type of traction. Obviously there's very, very popular bands out there on iTunes and those places. But when it comes to rock concerts, they're few and far between as far as great rock bands anymore. They just don't exist. There's more rap, there's more pop and all that stuff. But
hip hop's off of one song a lot of times. So it's able to get a big hit from one song, catch on in like TikTok or something, and translate over, versus metal, which a lot of times, or rock, which probably needs a couple songs for people to really be into a band to listen to their stuff. It's a little different.
Yeah.
You have one great song in rap, and no one has to hear from that guy again. They don't care. They'll enjoy that one song. But in rock and roll, like I especially towards the metal side, I feel like there's a much more of a cult following for groups, right? And that was the big thing about like Iron Maiden. Like, would Iron Maiden been able to get the following they had back then nowadays?
Yeah, probably not.
The artwork, look how great the artwork was on their covers.
Yeah,
I mean that's what was the difference. I mean the music was unbelievable, but that was everyone knew their artwork, right? It was a T-shirt.
It was great. Yeah, it was. Yeah, you wanted that, T-shirt, and every one of their albums was done by the same artist, as far as the artwork, and it was freaking great. And there's still bands like Five Finger Death Punch and Disturbed, and there's still bands out there that are still popular and very good and still tour and stuff like that. I got out of music for a while. I was into music, hair metal, and then grunge came along, and I wasn't really into grunge that much. And then I got out of music, and honestly, like 10 years ago, me and some buddies went to a strip club. Like, I hadn't been to a strip club in 20 years. And the music they were playing just brought music back to my life, because it's just my kind of music. And I heard Linkin Park, and I wasn't really a big Linkin Park fan. And this was after Chester Bennington had committed suicide. And I started listening to them, and I got real into them. And then I started listening to bands that sound like them a little bit. And I ended up morphing into this band, Bring Me the Horizon. And now I've got now music. I mean, if I go for a walk or something, I'm just music. I used to listen to Howard Stern all the time till he went crazy. And that was like 5 hours, 4 hours of my day. And now it's just music. So it is transformative. Yeah, it was really weird of me to do this, because I went kind of by myself. Not really. I mean, my buddy went with me. It's the Big E. So he went around looking at all the other stuff, and he's not into this type of music. So it's kind of me and the crowd. But it was awesome. The Big E is in Agawam, Massachusetts. So it's a big carnival like 21 days out of every year in September, they have this biggie, and it's got the Ferris wheels and all the Six Flags rides. It's got all the horrible food. It's got the petting zoos. It's got something for everybody. And they have a stadium there apparently, which I didn't even know till I found out these guys were coming. And so I went there, and it's interesting to see the people. I was the oldest person there, I bet I was, but I didn't care. But anyways, we could talk college football. But that was like, you talk about pickleball and some of the things you're doing, which are awesome. And I always want to do pickleball because I'm not a social person. I don't like people that much. So you organizing a pickleball tournament for like hundreds of people or going down and playing pickleball with strangers, that's not my thing at all. So for me to actually go to a concert when I could have just canceled at any time was a big deal. So maybe I'm becoming more social. Although I do hate people, because I will tell you this, and this segues into college football. Florida State is back. Okay.
Yeah.
They're 4-0. They just crushed BC, who suck, by the way. They beat LSU, they beat Louisville, they beat Duquesne, but they're 4-0. Okay. I thought Mike Norvell was going to get fired this season. I couldn't find 6 wins on the schedule because I thought they'd lose to LSU. I thought they might lose to Louisville preseason. I thought they might lose to BC. They're 4-0. Florida State fans are back, and they are just horrible human beings. Just horrible. Horrible in every way. The hatred that I'm getting from my Mike Norvell could be fired this season is just astonishing. But in a way, it kind of reminds me of the old days, when Bobby Bowden was around and when Jimbo Fisher was winning the national title there, and I looked into the recruiting in I think it was 2016. They got Marvin Wilson and Cam Akers, maybe 2017. They had a great class, ton of 5 stars. Since then, their recruiting has been crap. They just got a commitment from Hakeem Williams, who's a Florida kid, 5-star wide receiver. It's their best commitment since Cam Akers. Cam Akers is now what, a 4-year NFL veteran or 3-year NFL veteran? Yeah. They've been down so long. Part of it's kind of cool to see him back, but the cockiness of the Florida State fans is something I totally forgot existed, and it's back in full force now.
Well, it's interesting because Norvell, was he at Memphis before or no?
He was at Memphis, and he was an assistant at Arizona State. Yeah.
They would score 1 million points when he was at Memphis, if I'm not mistaken. His offense would score 1 million points. So he had won so many games there, although Memphis is always a place that either could be really bad or really good, depending on who the coach is, because there is a recruiting base right there in Memphis.
Right.
But it was interesting because it shows you, to me, how bad Willie Taggart was. Because Willie Taggart had everybody behind him. Norvell really has had to get people behind him. Not everybody was behind him, right? I mean, that's been a process. Most people have been skeptical. Willie Taggart had everybody behind him, and he just I don't know what was going on there. But Norvell is just kind of, I think, stayed with his approach. And, he was kind of quiet at Memphis, even though he won all those games, there when they were like 10-1 or whatever. But
yeah, they were 10-3 and 12-2 in his last year. So what happened is Jimbo was on his way out of Florida State, and he stopped recruiting, and he really screwed them personnel-wise. So then they made the bad hire of Taggart, who was supposed to be a great recruiter and didn't happen. And he made some bad decisions, including not recruiting a quarterback for like 2 straight cycles. And they were just awful. And then Norvell takes over. He goes 3-6 in COVID, and he gets the job during COVID. So he can't even build relationships in the areas he needs to because there's no traveling, there's no recruiting. And he goes 5-7 in 2021, and people are very, very dissatisfied with 5-7. Florida State fans, anyways. They're used to winning national titles and all this other stuff. And so this year was a real interesting season for him. Now, they're paying so much money to Taggart that they can't really afford to pay the buyout for Norvell. But if he had a bad season, trust me, that he would be gone. And this is what's funny about college football. And people will disagree with me, but this is it. You learn to win and you learn to lose. That game, They beat Duquesne in the opener, 47-7. Who cares? FCS win. The game against LSU was so important for this particular program because had they lost that football game, we could be talking about some real problems here. And they could have lost that football game because if you remember, they were winning the game and they had the ball and they were going in to score to put it away. And they fumbled down at the 1 yard line. LSU drives all the way down and scores to what essentially should tie the game. It was 24-23 at the time. And then they block an extra point. Florida State wins the game 24-23. Had that extra point gone through, had Florida State lost in overtime, they would be a 1-1 football team with a win against Duquesne and a completely blown opportunity to beat LSU. And everybody would be talking about how this guy sucks and he's no good. And that could lead to the next game, which is Louisville, which they win 35-31 in a close game. And now he's 4-0 after BC. You know, he could be 2-2 and everybody could be talking about getting fired. But now in this world, 4-0, FSU's back, we're amazing, and I'm an idiot and everybody hates me. And it's just one game. What is your point?
Yeah, no doubt. You have to go through this. This is me talking from a coaching perspective. You have to win. Maybe get a little lucky in some of these games that are close, right? And then the confidence rolls in. That's how they blow out BC, right? The confidence is rolled in because no matter what happens, no matter how close the score was, as an athlete, they just know we're 3-0, right? So now they're like, hey, let's get to 4-0. So now a game that probably would have been, if you would have said at the beginning of the season, either way, they come out and blow them out. And I mean, I could, you can almost say the same thing that Notre Dame, they struggled to win that first game, but they were so much better in this game than they were in the last game. And I don't know if they're even good or not, but
right.
It's like, but if they had lost that game last week, which could have potentially won against them, they had lost that game. That Cal guy catches the ball at the end and go, whatever. They probably would have lost this game, North Carolina, and all of a sudden, Marcus Freeman's world would have been a whole different situation. Player confidence, you can't undervalue the importance, even if it's a win against a team that is close. It's close, and it's not that good of an opponent. Just winning, because the players then just kind of see themselves differently, and that certainly helps as a coach, right? Otherwise, these guys, once they get in that other cycle, even Brian Kelly, right? I mean, now he's got it rolling a little bit,
Right. And the thing about it is, as on the sideline, you give up a 99-yard touchdown drive after you fumbled on the 1 yard line, and they kick the extra point, and it's 24-24, and you're heading into overtime. On the LSU sideline, you're elated. You're back in this game. You got a second life. The momentum is all yours, and confidence and feeling of goodness. And on the Florida State side, you're like, geez, how did we blow this? We were at the 1. We fumbled. We gave up a big drive. Now we're tied. We're going to overtime. Now you're playing a little bit tighter. You're a little bit more worried. You don't have the confidence. Just one blocked extra point can change the entire trajectory of a season and a coach's life. Because, let's look at Miami. I mean, they lose to Texas A&M, and they didn't look good. Now they lose to Middle Tennessee State, and it wasn't a loss. They got blown out. 45-31 against an FCS team. It's an utter embarrassment. All of the momentum of Mario Cristobal being hired, all the momentum in recruiting that they had is out the window just in this loss. Now you wonder about Miami. Originally heading into Texas A&M, you thought maybe they could be a 10-2 football team, because you believe. And Tyler Van Dyke was a first rounder, Then Texas A&M happens. You're like, okay, maybe 9-3. Now they're 2-2. Tyler Van Dyke got benched against Middle Tennessee. His first round hopes shattered, gone. Josh Gaddis is the new offensive coordinator. He's put in a pro-style offense, which is not playing to the strengths of Tyler Van Dyke. So now they got, their backup quarterback is going to be their starter maybe, or they might go back to Van Dyke, but his confidence is shot. Now you look at games like North Carolina, horrible defense, but they could lose that. Virginia Tech, Duke, Virginia, any of these games are potential losses now if they just lost, So they could be a 6-6 team now, and all of a sudden the bloom is off the rose for Cristobal. Billy Napier, first game of the season against freaking Utah, preseason playoff team, in my opinion, top 10 program. They win that game. They play physical. Anthony Richardson looks like the best player ever to live. Then they get whooped by Kentucky. They almost lose to USF. They lose in a hard-fought battle to Tennessee. Now they're 2-2, and we could be looking at a 6-6 season there. It's just everything changes on a dime. And for Anthony Richardson to go from a potential number 1 overall pick two weeks later to look like an undrafted free agent is it's astonishing how quickly things can change in college football. So enjoy it. Listen, people think I like Mike Norvell. He's always been nice to me. Always been, he's always been good about interviews, always been good about responding. People think that I'm rooting for him to be fired. I'm not, but they get very, very angry about stuff like this. And so the option is to never make a prediction, which was boring. And why would anybody be interested in me if I didn't make predictions? Or just double down on my prediction, which is stupid. Or just say, hey, you know what? I was wrong. I was absolutely wrong. And this team's got 4 wins already, and they're easily going to get to 6.
Yeah. I mean, look, the thing about coaching and player development and the people you recruit, it really is. Not only is it you don't exactly know what person is the right fit and right in each situation, but then does that coach help with the players' confidence and then somehow they're playing better because of it? Or is their style detriment in that area of the country? Could work here, doesn't work here type of thing. It's interesting. And then there are guys that, you don't know that they're universally going to win, but I wonder if Brian Kelly does do well at LSU, right? It's so funny because so many people hate him because of his personality. And I don't even know him, but I'm just saying what his perceived personality is. He really somehow, if he does really well at LSU, you'd have to say he connects with the players, right? I mean, you can't say that he doesn't connect with the players.
No.
Get them to do what he's hoping to get them to do. He may be tough, he may be non-wavering, but I would say football players, they do need a certain amount of structure to what they're doing, and if it's just you always see the term the players coach. This guy's the players coach. There's very few guys that have made that work. There's the Tony Dungy's of the world that have made that work. There's a few guys that have, but that's a harder way to make it work. But the guy who keeps things on track, like a Brian Kelly or a Saban, if the players buy in and they have success, they seem to have a chance to really have really long-term success, which is rare in college football.
Yeah. And we're in a world where everybody wants to hate and everybody wants a reason to hate, and more so than ever. So when you look at a guy like Mel Tucker at Michigan State, he signs an $85 million guaranteed contract, and that's great. And he's going to be rich forever. But that contract is going to come up every time. So they lost to Washington last week on the road, and they weren't favored to win. I mean, they were an underdog, but Washington was 4-8 last season, and it was an odd line. They just got smoked by Minnesota 34-7 at home. Everybody on earth now is saying this guy's overpaid. It was stupid to give him that money. And the reason I mentioned him is because he was the one that LSU wanted over Brian Kelly. So now, Michigan State overpaid him and now he's going to have to deal with that forever. And he is out of favor, and they're 2-2. You know, everybody's out of favor so fast, so quickly, and everything changes so quickly. You know, you win 4 games and you're undefeated 4 games in the season, and you're on top of the world, and this is it. We're back. You know, Texas is supposed to be back after barely losing to Alabama and then beating UTSA, and they just lost to Texas Tech. The highs and lows of college football with social media now are 10 times more than they've ever been before. And that's hard to keep your team focused as well. I mean, you could easily lose a team in a locker room based on all the negative garbage that's out there. So when you see a team like Tennessee, you know, who's undefeated now, and Rocky Top is going nuts, and they beat Florida, and Florida's owned them forever, you really want to embrace it, and you want to have fun with it, but you want to focus on the positive. You know, like Tennessee fans don't like me either, but they're not in my timeline like crazy saying you suck, die. They're celebrating their victory, and they're one of the toughest Twitter crowds out there. Florida State fans seem to be a little bit pissed, and I don't know, it's good or bad, you know, but eventually they're going to lose a game, and then I'm going to wonder what happens to them. You know, like, how far do they fall? Because they're on such a high rate now that they better go undefeated to keep this going, because I don't know if they could handle a loss. And, you know, if you told Florida State fans ahead of this season, if you went 9-3, they would say, absolutely, I'd take that in a second. That'd be unbelievable, because we've been so bad for so long. But now, you know, let's say you look at the Florida State schedule. You got Wake Forest, NC State, and Clemson. Those are their next 3 games. That's the number 22 team, the number 10 team, and the number 5 team in the country. They lose those 3 games, and they're 4-3. People are going to be calling for Norvell's head all over again. This is the way we live, and it's stupid. It sucks. But I guess I suck too, because I'm in the hot take business. So I got to live and die with hot takes. I just have to adjust to it a little bit, because it's intriguing to me. LSU looks like a good team. Louisville looks like a crap team. BC's a crap team. Duquesne's nothing. So they're 4-0. They've beaten one good team, and now they got the gauntlet of their schedule. But on the flip side, they win these 3 games, go 7-0. This is a top 10 team in the country, and that's fun. That's exciting, because right now they're 23 in the country. And Florida State being back, Texas being back, Miami being all that good. It's all good for college football. So,
you know what's great for college football too is the Joey Maguires of the world, a high school coach coming up, right? I remember when I ran, and you may have run camps there too. I don't know, but when he was at Cedar Hill, I ran my first Texas camps with Joey Maguire. Joey Maguire. I was from New Jersey. You know what I mean? I mean, you know how Texas is with football, and I was making a phone call around like, hey, you know, I'd like to bring a camp there. And you can imagine the crickets at the time, you know, being from New Jersey. And Joey Maguire said, bring it on down. I said, okay, I'm coming. And for many years, Texas was some of my best stuff. And but yeah, he was. I always thought, like, this guy is just like, there's something about him that was really like, you know, you're not shocked by someone's success. I always thought there was something about him. He always had the guy who his right-hand man who he had meet me at the door was a guy that was originally from New Jersey that moved to Texas. So I would have an immediate connection, you know what I'm saying? And it was just smart. Like, who would think that way? You know what I mean? Oh, I have a guy on my staff that's from New Jersey. Hey, go meet with this guy who's running a camp from New Jersey, so you guys can kind of get. I mean, that was, you know, so that's success. And then obviously Kansas. I mean, watching them play, it's like, it's unbelievable how good they're playing.
He's a great coach. Another great coach. And you don't know who's a great coach and who's not. Joey Maguire was a great coach in high school. You know, Matt Rule took him on at Baylor. And a lot of people thought about, well, you know, it was a recruiting move because Joey knows is respected by every high school coach in the state of Texas. But he turned out to be a really good coach there. Now he's got his own program, and he's, you know, listen, again, we're don't want to overreact to this.
Right.
I mean, they beat Texas. Texas may suck. Texas Tech is certainly not undefeated. I mean, they lost. I don't know who the hell they lost to. I can't even remember. Oh, they lost to NC State.
Yeah, good. It was good,
which is a good loss. I mean, but it's still they're 3-1, and but he's off to a good start. And Lance Leopold is a great coach. He was a great coach at the lower level, and then Buffalo, and now this, and they're 4-0. It's overreaction world, and it's awesome. I love it. But part of it is just a little ridiculous too. I mean, I think Kansas should be a top 25 team. If you're going to put A&M there, who lost to App State, or if you're going to have Pitt there, who lost to Tennessee, it's a good loss, but they beat West Virginia the same way Kansas beat West Virginia, and Kansas has beaten Houston and Duke, which are better other opponents than Pitt has. Like, there's a reason for Kansas to be 4-0. But again, they've got Iowa State, TCU, which are 2 winnable football games. Then Oklahoma, Baylor, Oklahoma State. That's tough, So he's not going to be on top of the world forever, too. There's ups and downs happen, but I think it's better when the ups and downs occur. I don't like to see a Kansas team go 2-10 every year for 10 straight years.
Oh, I know.
I don't like to see Florida State suck for 6 straight years. I don't like to see Texas continue to be no threat in the Big 12. And to move to the SEC, there'll be less of a threat. I like to see a little bit of ups and downs and parity going on there. And I think we're headed towards that. But some really good coaching jobs. Jeff Collins got fired at Georgia Tech. So it's like one coach every week now is going to get fired. You're Frost, Herm, Collins. Next week will probably be Durrell at Colorado or Harsin at Auburn. This is the new wave. You're going to get coaches fired every week.
Can you believe what they were? The assistant coaches were.
Yeah, leaking. Yeah, I don't know if I believe that.
I don't know if I believe that. If that's true, those guys shouldn't coach again. But if it's
killing themselves, like they're going to lose their jobs anyways. Why would you do that?
You're going to be fired anyway. So I don't know why you would do that. It doesn't make sense. I'd like to know more about that story. How about Oklahoma losing?
Yeah, and here's the thing too. I came out with
it's good, but
one of the things that I'm supposed to do is put out lists that make people discuss, right? And we discuss things. So I put out my list of the top, ranking the coaches in the Big 12, and I did this for every Power 5 conference. And of course, that's being brought up too because I had Norvell like 10th in the ACC, and obviously a 4-0. I had Joey McGuire ahead of Brent Venables, and they're both 0-0 as head football coaches. And people are like, how could you possibly have that? That's crazy. You're an idiot. You're a moron. And I had Lance Leopold at number 3 in the Big 12. I had Matt Campbell number 1, Mike Gundy number 2, and everybody's like, why you got Leopold 3? It's what you do with what you have. Correct. So Oklahoma should win every not every game, but most of their games. Kansas State always gives them trouble, but they looking at it, Kansas State's coming off a loss to Tulane. This is at home. You would think Oklahoma would win, and they don't. And the reason I had Joey McGuire ahead is because I think he's going to do a better job with what he has. Now, Brent Venables' win-loss record is going to be better than Joey McGuire's. That's just life. But you can't compare the Oklahoma job, multiple national championships, tremendous tradition and history, to the Texas Tech job, which has no tradition in history. And the last time people thought about him was either when Patrick Mahomes was running for his life or Mike Leach was winning with Crabtree and beating Texas. It's different. You have to rate coaches at Kansas differently than you rate coaches at Alabama. And so Kansas State isn't a shocker to me that they won that game. They were clearly looking ahead to that game. They just beat Missouri. That's a rivalry game, even though they're not in the same conference. They whooped them. Then they have home against Tulane and then Oklahoma on the schedule. And I just looked. I do a betting gambling show every Saturday morning for betting pros. You could follow them on Twitter at betting pros. And my co-host and I, Thor Nystrom, looked at that game and we both said trap. And Tulane was getting 2 touchdowns. So they were plus 14. And we said, take the 14, but maybe even touch the money line here. And they went and lost to Tulane, and then they come back and beat Oklahoma. That's kind of the way it works. Like sometimes you win a big game, you overlook your opponent, and then you win a big game. And it sucks for Kansas State because they should be 4-0 right now, and they should be in the top 15 in the country, and they're not. But Oklahoma's got some issues. They always do. Defensively, I don't know if that's ever going to be shored up. Even with Brent Venables, they always have defensive issues.
What's Texas's issue? I mean, I don't know. I can't figure out how the flagship school of the state of Texas has such an issue with more money, even more money than Texas A&M, more money than anybody else by far. Is it too many chefs in the kitchen? I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not there. I don't know. But I wonder, like, there's so many people that care almost too much, right? Putting in money, giving Bijan Robinson his he playing good, by the way, Bijan. So it's not him. He's playing really good. But, getting guys Lamborghinis and all that kind of stuff. And if anyone deserves it, it is him, actually, that does deserve it. So, but it's it is so many chefs in the kitchen an issue at a place like Texas? Is Texas so big that it's a lot of people have their hands in it? I mean, that's where I wonder. I don't know.
Now, there's certain jobs I don't think you can lose at. USC is one of them, and that's been a struggle lately. And yeah, Kiffin had some sanctions that he had to deal with from the Pete Carroll age, and Sark wasn't the right fit there at the time, and Clay Helton probably wasn't a great hire, but it's hard to lose in the Pac-12 in LA. It's hard to lose in the Big 12 in Austin, but yet they continue to do it. They've had 110 win season since they were in the title game in 2009. Charlie Strong was a bad hire, bad fit. Tom Herman was a good hire, good fit, didn't work out. Sark's a good hire, good fit, not working out. I don't understand how they can't win. I just don't get it. There's more talent on that sideline than Texas Tech by far. They hung with Alabama. I just think it's a mentality thing. I think it's just once you become a team that lacks confidence, you just don't get it back. And when you do get it back, like the 10-win season when Sam Elliger said we're back, and I think it's just hard to maintain that with so many different distractions. The head football coach at Texas has a lot to do. Okay. He's got to talk to boosters. He's got to handle everything from, this complaint about your player to, this stupid, booster meeting, or, this guy wants to talk to you and he donated, $5 billion or whatever. There's a lot, you're being pulled in a lot of directions, but that's the same at Ohio State. It's the same in Alabama. It's the same at Georgia. Somehow these guys just aren't managing it properly, and they can't keep their teams consistently focused in a not very good conference. So what's going to happen in the SEC? I think Sark could be in trouble. I mean, he's 2-2 this season. We all expected the Alabama loss. We did not expect Texas Tech. You got Oklahoma in 2 weeks. If he's 3-3 midseason, a lot of people are going to be calling for his head again. And then what do? Who do you hire? I mean, the last 2 hires seem to be good. I don't know who you hire. Do you go after Urban? I don't know.
I wonder, did you ever get into the show Friday? Not the movie or the book. The book was great, by the way.
I watched the show a little bit, but not much, no.
Okay, so the show makes me think about Texas football, and I'll tell you why. So at this high school, he's this great coach. He wins a lot of games, okay? But as soon as he loses, they're all over him. Like, all these different people are all over him all the time. Like, we still have confidence in you, but like knifing him in the back, right? Eventually he gets knifed in the back by a quarterback's dad that, like, I think he was split. I don't remember what it was, split time with, something like that along the line. And he ends up leaving, and he comes back and goes to the rival high school, and he builds up a place from the bottom and ends up being really good. But this is over many, many years, right? The show. But he's always on that edge. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's known as this great coach. He's always like, one time he goes to college for literally a year and comes back. Like, but he's always feels like this, like someone like people are there are a few that are looking out for him, and then there's a whole lot of other people with arrows shooting at him. You know what I mean? And
Yep.
that's what I feel like Texas may be like, because even though you have this group of people that are for you, there's a whole nother group on the same side that you're on that are not for you. You know what I mean? Like, should we have hired him? He may have been the wrong hire. You know what I'm saying? And all these parties pushing against each other because Texas is so big. It's like Alabama, right? Until they got Nick Saban right, they needed to go back down to the bottom. They said, let's get Nick Saban. And Nick Saban worked out. I mean, what if Nick Saban didn't work out? You know?
Right.
Nick Saban ended up working out, and they became Alabama again, right? That's what I feel like Texas is like. If they don't, until they get it right, actually get it right, that guy comes in and can handle all of that like Nick Saban did, it may always be like this.
Could be. And there's certain jobs that are turning into that. Auburn is one of them. Florida is one of them. Like, just really toxic situations where good enough is never enough. You know, Jim McElwain wins the East twice, and he's pushed out. And Dan Mullen, goes within a touchdown of winning the SEC, and he's pushed out the next year. Gus was being pushed out forever, and now Harson's there in year 2, and he's being pushed out. Eventually it catches up to you because your job becomes less attractive to people. And I'm talking like big name people. So
right,
sometimes you end up settling on a Harson because your first 6 choices didn't say yes. Or, sometimes you end up with a Steve Sarkisian when, somebody who has a better resume or a chance of better success doesn't want that job. And that's what Texas is turning into. And more teams are going to turn into this. It's just the way it is with impatience, especially now with all the big TV money, expanded playoff. You're going to see more and more coaches get fired, have less of a chance to hang around and stay, and more jobs are going to be toxic like that. And I think that's what Texas has become. We should wrap it up, though, because we're over in a freaking hour. So let's wrap it up. That's you on social, Coach Schumann. I'm M. Farrell Sports. I'm on Twitter, Instagram. You're on Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. www, World Wide Web, myfootballcamps.com/D1. Just had somebody drop in here. So we got another client coming. It's getting really popular. So don't wait, because we're going to get too busy pretty soon.
Yes, there's no doubt about it. We'll see you next Monday, Mike. Thanks so much. This was great. I felt like I'm sitting in a restaurant with one of my buddies. Just
we need beer.
Far away.
We need beer, man. We need
I know
virtual beer.
I know. If we live closer, we could actually do the show in the same spot.
I know. Imagine I'm 3 hours from North Jersey, and to me that seems like a 50-hour trip.
Well, one day when this show becomes so popular, when our live viewers they went to 5 and 6 today. At a time.
What does that mean, 5 and 6? I don't know what that means.
Well, no, so it looks like we're like doubling our viewership today than we have last time. And I'll let you go on this. These little cut-ups, I think, are slow. As we do more of them, I think that's the key.
Send them to me. Send them to me. I forgot to remind you last week, but I didn't want them because I was so blurry. So hopefully I'm not blurry as this comes out, and then send them to me. I'll promote them.
And check out. Did you look at the TikTok on my page? I had a guy do some other. I paid a guy to do some cut ups like in the style that people like it on TikTok and stuff.
Yeah.
Check it out and tell me if you like, because I'll have him do more of these versus my cut ups, which aren't bad.
No, they're not bad. I'll look at it though.
Take a look at it. All right. Have a great day, man.
See you. Bye.
Later.